Yes, I'm Eric Garcia, pronouns he, him, his. What I do in the educational field now, I am a district social worker within Santa Clara Unified School District. This is my third, now I would say fourth year. This is going to be my fourth year. 1 year of internship for the master's program, 2 years at Santa Clara County Office of Education, where I was working alternative education. And then this year being a district social worker. And again, that was a new position that they had created this year. And so half my time is allotted to work at alternative education. Again, very fortunate to keep working at alternative education. I didn't know that about the position. I'm very happy about it. And then the rest of the time, I'm doing district initiatives.
So the last time we talked, you're on the podcast previously. We talked when in the summer? Was it the summer?
Yes,
It was the summer, and you were starting this new position, correct?
correct. That was.
Okay, and what? So what's eye opening about this new position that maybe it caught you off guard, or you really enjoy, or let's talk about your
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into it. For that one, with alternate education, I don't know what it is if it's just my luck or in the educational field in general. I feel like I get tricked to go places.
Uh,
With this, the county of Office of Education, the acronym is SCOE. So I'm
uh,
referring to them as that. But within SCOE, when I applied for the position, I didn't know what school district or what school I was going to be placed at.
yeah,
I interviewed, and then once I got the interview, they're like, "You got the position." I was like, "Oh, thank goodness!" And appreciate it. I'm grateful for it. I worked at alternate education. I never heard of alternate education, didn't know what it was, and it was in Gilroy where I was living at the same time too. And I was like, I never heard of this school, so I had to research it and I
yeah,
had to find out about it. Then I was like, I think I'm gonna like it, and I definitely did. I fell in love with alternate education, and to explain about that too, alternate education from my experience within the school districts too that I've been with, alternative education is school sites where those students have been expelled from previous schools. So SCOE was Uray and Morgan Hill students. When they were expelled from those districts, they came over to SCOE because they couldn't have their own alternative education program.
yeah.
So then the county put it on. And then now where I'm at, Santa Clara Unified School District, again, when I applied for this position, because at Scully there was a reduction of force where they was doing a lot of layoffs, so I had to look for other work to where to go.
Hmm.
And when I applied for this position, it was very broad. It didn't say much on the application, but I was like, let me just go for it
Yeah.
because I heard of this district. It has a long history of or mental health in the program in the school district, and I heard really great things about it when I was in the master's program. So I was like, let me apply for this. Let me see what's up. I don't know if I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna shoot my shot here.
Hmm.
And so I did with the position, and the job description was talking about like district stuff, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for that
Yeah.
district, but let me just go for it. And when I went into the interview, the first question was, "Have you ever worked in alternate education? And if you have, like, tell us about your experience." And I was like, "Oh, here we go! Like this is for
Yeah.
me right here." And I got excited about it. I really love alternative education with my experience with it. And so I got the position very fortunately, and I'm very grateful for it. And it kind of like segue me into where I want to go with the educational field. I do want to advance like to administrator or in the district level. So I was like, maybe this is a good experience where half the time is district work and half the time is still direct work. And so I just found a really interesting balance of like working with my youth still, which is my passion, is what I love, and then I still have that ability to do some district initiatives, such as like one initiative I'm working on right now is something simple, such as who is issuing work permits in the summertime for the students who need it, because they need to provide for their families or maybe help with financial income for their for families. So how do we set them up for success, and how and who is going to do that? And as you know, and probably experience, like people pass off the buck. So it's like, oh, it's not this
Yeah.
summertime. I'm not dealing with that. It's
Yeah.
not my student. So you go here. So we're trying to work out that system approach. And so I'm really grateful and getting a lot of experience of working with others in those collaborations to recognize like the gaps in the systems and how can we fill those gaps, or how can we better the system itself.
Yeah,
So learning a lot, man, and it's a great
that's
time. And I'm happy with it.
that's good. It sounds like you're doing a lot of good work. You know, you're mentioning work permits. I remember when I used to have to get a work permit, and I got it through the school. I remember I
Yeah,
used to get my work permit through the school, you know, and you get it through the school, and you fill it out, and you get back to school, and you get your permit. My first job I had was when I was 14 years old. It was through a company called Clean and Green, where we would just ride around the neighborhood and clean up trash and pick up, clean up little areas, you know, um, paint over graffiti. Now that part was a little
yeah,
dangerous when I think about it, man. You know, you got a bunch of
yeah,
kids who probably look like gang members themselves, like they
yeah,
probably look like gang members themselves, and they're out there in the worst neighborhoods, painting over graffiti. And I'm like,
yeah,
when I think about it, I'm like, damn, that was dangerous. I don't know if that was the right thing to do to be painting over graffiti in rough areas, but I would get work permits that way, through school.
yeah.
That was one of my first jobs, cleaning green. Um, I did it multiple years, but is it still the same way? Do they get work permits through the school?
Yeah, so it's probably going to vary from every place to place, right? And then the secondary schools, so such as like high schools, where they will do that, where they get it from if they're a minor and they're still attending a school district, then they will get the work permit from the school site itself, and they have to sign off on it. Then there is a for some people, they will go more in depth with it to make sure, like, okay, if they're working somewhere, uh, is that environment safe?
Yeah,
Because for you, that sounded pretty chill. Like as a youngster, you're probably like, "Oh, I get to like paint over
yeah,
tagging, and I get
yeah,
paid for it. All right, this is chill."
yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. It was a great thing, but when I think about it as an adult, I'm like, "Damn, that was dangerous."
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
pretty dangerous, they
yeah,
put us in, unsafe predicaments,
yeah,
and like I said, we're a bunch of, kids who are poor, who are looking for, some money, and they're like, "Alright, let's do it." When I would get these summer jobs, it was because I needed to buy clothes for the school year.
yeah,
So that's what it was. It was like, "Okay, I know my parents can't afford, the all this other stuff, the shoes, the clothes, times are tough, and so if I got a summer job, I could buy clothes for myself, I could buy new shoes for myself, and that's why I would get these summer jobs. I get them every summer. I get a summer job just to provide clothing, because times are tough. You
yeah,
ask your parents for a certain amount, they could only give you some things, and you're like, man, but I need some other things. I need some more things, and so that's why I would get these summer jobs. Did you ever work through the summer?
yeah. Summertime, my very first job, I was working at Burger King, where I did
Mhm.
not have it my way. You know what I'm saying? Uh, so it was like I was 17 at the time or 16. And then it was just doing random things around Burger King. It was like getting the stuff out of the freezers, refrigerators for the new shipment coming in. So getting that out, then putting those in, and then putting it back on top of the other shipment, and then cleaning around Burger King. And that's what it was. And it very much like exactly what you're saying though, John, is like that's what like some things you would think is so small where and let's say in the educational field where it's like, oh, who cares about that process? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But like perfect example of like where you're saying like my family can't afford new clothes. I want new clothes for the school year. Or what if
yeah,
I'm able to be financially dependent so then they could worry about putting food on the table or paying the rent, the other things that come with this too.
yeah,
So doing stuff like this is very great. Like solving that system or seeing gaps in the system. That's like something that I'm doing on the district side to help out with that of like how can we support our kids? Because if our students are going to be, it's the holistic approach. If they're going to be, if they could have the like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that step one of like safety,
safety.
shelter. If they could
Yeah,
have those things, food, then they could be at that. Then they could reach that top level of the pyramid,
mhm,
such as like being successful, going
mhm,
to college, going to get a job, all those
yeah,
things in between. Of like that's what we're looking for. That's what we hope to do to help make sure
yeah,
they're all good every way.
yeah, because without that work permit, man, it would be rough for me. It would be rough for me, it'd be rough for my parents too, it would just be rough. I
Mhm.
needed that job, I needed that summer job. I remember
Right.
going to, buying shoes was an issue, and my mom, I'm old, I'm 48 years old, so, buying a pair of shoes at that time when I was a kid, like, let's say I'm 13 years old, 12, I'm in
Mhm.
junior high school, middle school. she would be like, "Okay, the limit's like $25 for a pair of shoes.
Oh,
$25, that's the limit for you." And I'm like, "Ma, I can't go to school with $25 shoes. I can't do
yeah,
it. I need
yeah,
more. I'm gonna get made fun of. I can't do it." And it would be like a war. It'd be a war at the mall, and I just stood my ground. I was like, "Mom, I can't do it. You can't send me to school with $25 shoes. I'm just gonna be made. It's gonna be bad for me when I go to school. And so I remember it would be like crying and a war at the mall to try to convince her to be like, I need more. I need more
yeah,
than just a $25 pair of shoes. And so that's why I was like, I need a summer job. It's
yeah,
a burden, and I'm being a jerk. I'm being a jerk here with my mom, and she's doing her very best, and I'm being a
yeah.
jerk, and we don't understand each other right now. So yeah, I'm glad that you're getting that system into place.
Yeah, and then as you know too, like even though it could be something as like, okay, these nice pair of shoes, they look good, same. But if we look good, we feel good. And then for us, if we didn't have the most positive environment, if we had all this free time on our hand, what could we have gotten into?
That's right.
And then the skills that we learn while we're at a job, like time management, discipline, organization, finances, taxes, and that was a big thing, right? When you're a
Mhm.
youngster and you're like, "Wait, I worked this many hours, but I'm getting this much cut from my paycheck. What is going
Yes.
on here?"
Yes.
So all
Yeah.
those like little things that come with having the job too to occupy ourselves and like skills that we could take moving forward with us.
Yeah. You need some sort of purpose. You need something to occupy your time.
Purpose,
Yeah. You need something. You
100%.
you you can't go through the whole summer. Back then it was like 3 months. I remember it was like 3 months of summer vacation. You can't go through the whole summer as a 14, 15-year-old with nothing to do. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. You're gonna you're gonna find something, and it's usually not the most constructive, not the best thing for, people like me. I don't know. I don't know else to say it, but just like that.
Yeah.
It's just um so yeah, that's good that you're doing that.
Yeah, and it's something as simple as that, and then, like, that's what it is, like, working with the alternate education youth is, like, these people have are, like there's people out there that have notions like, "Oh, you really think they deserve a second chance, or do you think
Oh, oh,
they" Yeah, I know, I know,
oh,
some things I've heard from adults, I'm like,
wow,
What? Did you just say that?"
wow,
And they're like, "Do you think they deserve the chance or opportunities, or the resources that we have?" I'm like, "Whoa, like, let's back up here." And then just in
wow.
my head, I'm like, okay, how do I approach this first of all? Because I know if they know what those students are going through or the cards they've been dealt, and
That's
those
right.
students are trying their best uh, to make it or to be something. I was like, if people knew their stories of these students or what they go through, I think I hope the light would change. But there's some other people's mentalities are like, pick yourself up by the bootstrap. Well, however, if those students never had bootstraps, how are you supposed to pick yourself up? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and so doing these things of like working alternative education to give them opportunities and different ways to think about things like, hey, if you getting that money right now, like that fast money from selling this stuff, where is that going to get you? And then
Yeah.
what can you do with those skills? And a lot of these skills that these students have because they had to survive is like they have a lot of leadership skills.
Mhm.
They have a lot of influence. So it's like, how do we take this energy and the skills that they have that may be negative? How do we turn that to a positive to go towards a direction where they can, and if they know they could visualize it and see it and have that representation around us, if we could give them that, sky's the limit with them.
Yeah, yeah. Every one of these students, the students with difficult behavior, have a story. They'll have a story about like why they were in this
Yeah,
situation. Why are they acting this way? Behavior is a form of communication, and
correct.
they all have these stories, and it's like it's the lack of support. It comes down to like they didn't have the support system. Like maybe there's food insecurity, right? And so they eat all their food at school, or maybe there's no electricity, or there's no access to after school programs, or they don't have all they have is their mom, and they have no other family members. There's nobody else to, give them advice, nobody else to babysit, nobody else to provide any other assistance. You know, they financial problem, all these things. There's always something. Alcoholism, abuse, mental illness. It's always a story, and when I see these students that I work with, and they're doing things that are out of the ordinary. They're eloping, they're throwing chairs, they're angry all the time. It's like, okay, what's causing that? Let's find out what's causing that. And almost 100% of the time, it's always something like, well, they're moving from shelter to shelter. They have mental illness in the family. There's drug abuse. The dad was arrested because he abused his mom. Something. There's always something that you're like, oh, that's what it is. And so you're asking somebody that's going through all of this stuff to pull their bootstraps up. You're like, just get it together. What do you mean,
Yeah.
just get it together? Like, just get
Yeah.
it together. that,
What?
yeah, like, come on, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Um, so I think that we need to take that time to find out what it is that these kids need, and then do our very best to help provide that. That's just my thinking. My thinking is like, we need to create great human beings. We need to create these human beings, and part of that is teaching them how to, I don't know, self-regulate, social, emotional. There's all kinds of different skills that these students need, and I don't know. I feel like one of our jobs is to help our very best to help provide that to these students and not just write them off. Um,
100%. And
yeah,
you're very right. So I'm glad you're saying that with it about there's so much that a student goes through that I mean, and it's sad to say in alternate education, most of them are involved in like the form of like McKinney Bento, which is like unhoused or near homeless. They've been involved in the juvenile justice system. They've been involved in the foster care system, these different systems. And that's the student themselves, is not including the families, such as like what you're saying about abuse in the home, generational cycles, such as like prison or gang involvement, substance usage, alcoholism, abandonment, single parent home. And it's not like the parents don't want to be a parent. It's just like they have to work 2 to 3 jobs to put food on the table or to keep the lights on at home. So it's like there's a combination of things that happens at home or in the family environment, and they come to school like you're saying, and then we're trying to teach them ratios and decimals. And it's like this student is just trying to survive and just trying to get through the day, and then with their family as well too. So
yeah.
how do we do that? And schools are important places to do those things.
And I was thinking about this. Like, you have to sell education to these students.
Yeah.
Like, so the way I see it is like, these students are like, education hasn't worked in my family. Like, it hasn't worked here. Like, you're selling me this product of get my degree and go to college, but none of these people have their degree, or none of my examples in my life have got. This person's selling drugs, and they're making good money. They didn't graduate from school. They didn't do these things. This is how they do it. So why do I even need school? It sounds like I could just get by doing what my cousin's doing. What I could sell drugs. I could do these things.
Mm.
It's a hard sell. It's a hard sell. Education is a hard sell to these students, because it's like, I've never seen education work in my family. None of it's not working. So, like, uh, it's just a hard sell. And I don't know. It's When I think about these students, again, students with difficult behavior, I see it like a magic show.
Mm.
So, like, here's what I mean by this, right? So in a magic show, about, I don't know, 80 to 90% of the people who are watching the magic show are gonna like, oh wow, that was amazing. It's a
Yeah.
magic show. You did it. Like, wow, that's so
Mm.
cool. And then there's gonna be this small
Oh,
portion that be looking at this guy and be like,
okay.
that's not it. No.
Yeah.
No, that's impossible. No, no, there's some
Yeah.
sort of trick. There's something else there. No, I'm not gonna believe you. That's
Mhm.
These are these students. There's 90% of the students in the classroom be like, "Oh, mister, yes, I'll listen. I'll follow directions. I'll do whatever you say. Like, oh, yes, I'll do my work. I'll do these things." But then there's like, that 10% of students like, "Mm-mm, no, what you're not. I'm not buying into what you're selling me. You got to convince me more. Whatever you're selling me, I don't buy into it. I just don't buy into that." And that's the piece that we have to figure out. How do we get them to buy into it?
Yeah, like yeah, I like that. I like that metaphor. I'm definitely gonna put that one in my pocket as
Yeah.
I go along. Because like what you're saying is like there's the general, right? You're selling the general idea of it, but then and for the general students, the masses, but then for these few students that we have, it's like why? And
Yeah.
that's great. And it's like, okay, thank you for that critical thinking that you have. Yeah, why are we doing this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then let's just be real about it, and then try to apply it to them of like, how does it relate? Because of what you're saying of like, yeah, I see all these negative stuff around me, or I don't have nothing to look up to, so I'm just trying to make my way. And if someone's over here coming at me at school, like, yeah, we're trying to teach you, um, multiplication, and it's like, why do I need it? And you're like, you know what? Yeah, let's look at it. Like, why do you need it? And you could relate to like how you're saying get specific to them of like, hey, what do you want in the future?
Mhm.
And this is just for example, it's like, okay, like common answers by some of these students would be like, I want to travel, or I want a
Mhm.
house, I want a
Mhm.
home. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's cool. What kind of home do you want? And you get specific with it, you know what I'm saying? Make it
Mhm.
relevant so they can image it. Like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
I want a two-story home. I want a Beamer, a BMW, or a
Mhm.
G Wagon. I was like, okay, cool. That's cool. How much? Do you know how much those cost? They're like, yeah. I go, all right, cool. Um, and you start breaking it down. All right, so that multiplication, right? They're like, yeah. I go, how much do you need to work in an hour to get to where you want to get to later on? And you need to use the simple math of that. And you start relevating, or you relate to them with that. And you talk about finances. They all love money, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you want the house? All right, cool. And then what about the clothes? And you start getting specific with them, and you start relating into that way of like tailoring to them. So they go like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I do need to know this. Or this could benefit me or my family if I learn this skill.
Mhm.
So it is becoming like you said, like selling it to them and just like
You have
knowing,
to,
okay, what's
man,
important to you?
mhm. In high school, when I worked in the high school, it was like, these kids who were, like, kind of falling off. I'm like, I would have these conversations like, "Hey, you wanna take your girl on a date, right? Like,
Yeah.
that costs money.
Mhm.
Well, how are you gonna take her? How are you gonna take her there? What, you got a car? Are you gonna ride a bike? What, a bus? What are you gonna do? What is Oh, a car, okay, so how you you got gas money, you got insurance, how are you gonna get all this money for all of this?
Mm.
How are you gonna do that?" You know? We'd have these conversations, I'm like, "Okay, you want these things, right? You have a goal, you want these things. Now, in order to get these things, we have to do this. These are some things you have to do, like get your high school diploma. You have to get your high school diploma. Let's talk about that." Right? And you make it relevant, like, okay, this is what you want. These are the things that you should try to do. Try to do to get these things that you want. And I think that I would have these conversations with these students who are falling off in high school all the time. Yeah. So, hey, but you got a book. You got
Oh
a
yeah.
book. You put out a book. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah,
How's it?
definitely kind of like segues.
Why did you put out that book?
They appreciate that. It kind of like segues going from like what I do in the field of like social work, and what it stands from is like alternate education. When I've been working alternate education for the past 2.5 years, it's unfortunate to say where most of the students enrolled in these schools, and I live where we're in California, I guess to give a little context. I'm in California, specifically the Bay Area and San Jose. And then where that's located is like San Francisco, like an hour south of that. And I guess like people for SoCal, I guess LA to like San Jose is like probably 5.5, 6 hours north.
Mm,
Um, so to give that context of like most of the time, the schools where I've been to that have alternate education, primarily the student demographic have been Latino males. Then I'm just realizing I'm just looking at the student population and the ratio and where I was working for Scully in Gilroy and Morgan Hill, these small little communities, um, where there is not much diversity, where it is mostly Latinos in the community, but also Caucasian. And so I'm just like, wait, so you're telling me only the Latino males are the doing offensive things?
Yeah.
Or is the systemic racism going on here? Or is it like what's going on? I was just tripping out about it. And then I go over here to now I'm in Santa Clara Unified School District where it is a little bit more diverse, where there is like the Latino ratio, like the student population, it probably makes up 30% of it. And then there is Asian, Indian, Caucasian, or other big groups of demographics of the student population. And again, you're telling me 95% of the student population at alternate educations are Latinos and Latino males.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what's going on here? Um, so that's like where like this kind of transpired where I'm just like, what is going on here with like the Latino males? And then at uh over here or at SCOE, one day of the week I was working at elementary school site. So it was it was a trip where like Monday through Thursday I was at alternate education. And then on Friday I would be going to elementary. And then I'll have to switch up the way I would talk to the
Oh, yeah.
students and just like how I present myself. I'm like over here, like chopping up with the students how I do on my
Mhm.
all ed sites, and I go over here at elementary and I'm like, oh, okay, how are you doing
"Hi,
today?
hi."
Yeah, and then my intervention sessions, I was doing like more play and like
Uh,
Legos and like art, um, and like biblio, which is where it gets into like the bibliotherapy, which is like use books as like a
uh-huh.
form of therapy session. And so when I was doing this, I was working with some little kids at elementary, like in the first and second grade. I was like, let me use books to tell or like to do intervention. You know, there's art. I'll jazz it up where I'm like, getting to character a little bit with them
Mhm,
to get their interest and to talk about a lesson that is in the book. And then I was going through books that we had at the wellness center, and I just couldn't find anything that I thought was like relevant that would
mhm,
relate to them. So I didn't see there was they use and again it is elementary, so they use animals as characters. But I was like, sometimes we need like human representation and specifically like diversity of like your cultural backgrounds.
mhm,
So I feel like I couldn't find that. And then when I was looking up and I was like at that time I was looking up books and I was like English and in Spanish because I had some Spanish speaking students too. And then I was like, I couldn't find much out there. And I was like, what is going on here? I go, am I tripping out? Um, and I was like, this is and then all this was coming together like over time. And then that's how I kind of came together with the book of like Aidan's Wellness Adventure. So I use the story of like a student that's having a bad day. Um, and it's like a simple assignment of like the teacher said like or coming back from a summer break, the teacher said like write about your family. And the student just like throw something across the room that they're not supposed to be doing, like, difficult behaviors.
mhm,
And then in the book, I have the teacher go up to the student and just like get eye to eye with them and just ask them like, "Hey, something going on?" And the student just shrugs. And the teacher spends the time with them about, "Hey, there's a wellness center on campus. Like, do you want to go to it?" And then the student has heard from about the wellness center from their friends, so they like, oh, "Okay, let me go check this out." And then from there, they go to the wellness center and then they do an activity with the therapist on site does a activity with the student to help regulate themselves. And then from there, they're able to talk with the student about what's going on. And they come to find out, almost spoiler alert for the book, but spoiler alert is like that student's father. I left it in the book kind of broad, where that student's father was taken away. And then when that assignment that the teacher gave out was like, uh, write about your family, it activated a student about family and like, oh, my father. And that's why so it just perfectly goes into the conversation we're just having about you never know with students. And this
mhm,
difficult behavior is a form of communication of something.
mhm,
And so that happens with the student that I have. And it goes into the times where I left it open where like the student's father got taken away. And again, that could be because of like sickness or incarceration or abandonment, or even now with societies, or what's happening now here in society of deportization. And it's like, what's that student supposed to do? Again, like the student has all this emotion in them, and you expect them to come to school. Um, so that's what like the book is all about.
That's awesome, that's awesome. And so, how long did it take for you to get the book together?
Yeah, I think in real time, like I said, like this was happening where like I was piecing stuff together and I was realizing the gaps in the system of like even the book or book industry where I saw all this happening. And then once I actually, this is what happened when I got pink slipped um, from SCOE, and I was like, you know what, let me keep myself engaged in something and give myself up to like what I felt like what the community needed, especially during this time. And that was like my form of come or like giving back to the community. So it took about probably when I got really serious with it about 7 months, and that was like me jotting down the storyline, working on it, and then got hired on uh, an editor, worked with them, flushed it out a couple times, like repeatedly just go through in the book and just like grammar, storyline, those things, adding it and subtracting things, make it um, relevant, and then working with the illustrator after that portion and working with the illustrator, working on those things, edits again, reviews what I did and didn't want in there, and how do I capture imagery in there to represent like the whole mental health and like what's going on.
That's
So it
good.
probably took about 7 to 8 months, and this is the self publishing way, like independent, not like if you go to like these, if you get picked up by publishing, you're big time, and that would take, from what I understood, like the research when I was looking at like how to do all this, and that takes about like 2 to 3 years. And then
Oh,
with yeah, then I was like, this needs to come out here and now.
yeah,
And then with being independent, you do have full control of creativity and like what's in the books. So
yeah.
I feel like I had something specific where it was for the community and what I wanted to have in there, that I didn't really want anyone to kind of like watering it down. And wanted to have something that was like here and now for this, what I felt like the community needed.
Can you purchase it on Amazon or is it digital?
Yeah, so working on many ways of doing it. I was trying digital, it didn't work out, and I was like, okay, so it's just like again the whole going through this process of like social entrepreneurship of like being a first timer.
Yeah,
It is on Amazon and Ingram Spark, and the book is in English and in Spanish. And again, I did that because of what I saw was like the Spanish mental health literacy was not there, and I want to contribute to it. And like what I said about alternative education, about needing that, and that's why I did this for, because like this is like what I see as like a preventive skill that teachers could have this book to talk about like therapy, or like, hey, we have big emotions. Parents could have these conversations if they never been taught it, generational. And then
yeah.
hopefully like clinicians, myself, like social workers or therapists that work at school sites, they can use this as like that, as a tool in this session. And again, the whole representation of it, of like having diverse characters in the book, multiple languages, just really helps out when you see yourself in it.
That sounds amazing. You know, I had this conversation with my family the other day. We were going through we're at the dinner table. We're gonna watch a Christmas movie when we're gonna eat our dinner.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we watch the traditional ones like the Grinch or whatever, all the Elf, all the traditional. But I was thinking like, man, is there any Latino representation of a Christmas movie? Like I was like, is
Yeah.
there one that we could just go to? Like that's our go-to. We go to this movie. Like we'll go to what we watch Elf, we watch the Christmas story, we watch the Grinch, we watch all these ones. And I was like, is there one that represents is that represents us? And we could not
Um,
think of one that like that's the go-to movie. Now I was like, man, there's so many gaps in different areas where like, man, representation matters and we're not represented, in a lot of different areas. And you coming out with this book, it sounds like you're trying to fill those gaps, and that's pretty amazing. Even in like when I think about movies about school, like you got
oh,
Stand and Deliver,
yeah.
and then after Stand and Deliver, I don't know. I can't think of a I don't know. Can you think of any?
like when he made schools, like because I think of like or no, he wasn't a teacher, but like Coach
Coach
Carter.
Carter, but that, that's
Yeah,
the African American community, right?
correct. Yeah,
So Latino
um,
representation
yeah.
in a movie when it comes to schools, or no,
No,
right?
there's
Like, you got
not
Stand and
too
Deliver,
many.
you got this old
Yeah,
movie Stand and Deliver, and then
yeah.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, I'll be like Freedom Riders, and there's a other movie that's like about Chicanos that like there was the superintendent who was Mexican, and then the students went to go play golf, and then they had to represent the Mexican community in that. I think that was called like
I saw that one. Yeah, I saw that one,
yeah,
yeah.
but there's like
Yeah,
very few like what you're saying about,
but
and
the
it's just like
main character, I think he was a Caucasian man in that one. The main character
yeah,
was a Caucasian man who was leading the Latino,
correct,
golf team, like that, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, it's always about kinda like, I hate to say it, but it's like that, where here is, some sort of other, I don't know. Even that movie about the running portion, there's a movie about runners, and there's a
uh,
Caucasian man who comes into a community, and he teaches them how to run. I
McFarland,
McFarlane, that one.
yeah, yeah,
But it's always like that, where, like, here comes
yeah,
So, I'm glad that you're putting out this book. I'm glad that
yeah.
you're doing these things. How was it being, received?
Yeah, being received, it is like for my end, it is like because being an independent self-publishing, it's you doing the work. It's you doing the marketing, doing the things, writing things up, uh, putting it out there. So it's like it is tremendous, or it is a lot of work going aside of it, and being received wise, like it is going well. For me, it's just like success is different for everybody. For me, like doing this, I was like, I just want to go outside my comfort zone by putting myself out there by doing this book. And like when I had this thought of doing a book, I was like, man, is anyone going to buy it? And is this even going to be good?
Yeah,
And you never know, right? Until you do it. I never, for me, I never want to have those thoughts of like, what if?
yeah,
What if when I'm over there, when I'm 90 years old on my deathbed and I'm reflecting on life, I'm like, oh man, what if I would have done that when I had the opportunity? So I never want to do that in my life. And I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. And for me, I'm not the one to put myself out there, but I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing this for the community to help out with it by doing these and hopefully just help somebody. So success to me is like, okay, just doing it was a great
that's a
thing, a
win.
great
That's a
task.
win already.
That's a that's a win right there. That's
Yeah,
personal growth. And then if I could just have one person that reads it and it helps them out, whether it be like a youngster, a little kid, where they see themselves in it, that's a win. So in my eyes, that's how I see it as. And like when I got feedback from like friends or family or people who have purchased it, and they say like it helped out, or there's someone that I reached out to a friend and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna tell my sister about it." And because their son was having difficult behaviors at the time, and they were going to get them a therapist, like at the wellness center at the school. And she's
mhm,
like, "This is a perfect book for it." She was like, I love that you're doing this," and I'm like, that's when I was like, "See, that's what it's about. Just getting that one of like it could help a potential student out or kid out."
yeah,
What they're going through, or they see themselves in the book of like, oh man, because like commonly, like what we're saying about like Latino males, we're not able to talk about emotions. Only emotion we could talk about or say or just display is anger.
anger. Mhm,
And it's like we could do way more than that, but society standards or culture standards is like, oh, we can only do that. But however, that hopefully I have that in the book where the student is able to talk about themselves, that have a Latino male therapist in the book so that students could see that too. It's like, oh, I could become that. I could be a
yeah,
therapist or
yes,
working in the schools or a teacher or a vice principal.
mhm,
So just hopefully like to help out in that way. So if I could just get one person or student or even support of like others to have that, I count that as a win in my book.
yeah, yeah. Have you been more involved in, social media? Like, how's that going with you to promote the book?
Yeah, so I'm definitely learning a lot about it, where I'm like YouTubing like how to
Uh,
make, collages or videos about it. So definitely spending a lot more time, like even me just personally, I don't spend that much time on social media. Like my account is private. Like I only have like 100 people as followers, and I just want to stay connected to people who I know, and
Yeah.
that's realistic. I'm not here for the fame or fortune. So creating a brand about this was again me going outside my comfort zone and just like putting it out there. And it has been a lot of like, oh, okay, what's the difference between like a reel, a story, a post? you know, this personal account, a
Oh,
business
yeah,
account on
yeah.
Instagram, views, interactions, and I was like, oh man, there's a lot to
There's a
this.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, to shout out to everybody who's doing those things. I was like, there's a lot going into this, and it has been a learning curve with this.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, the social media thing. It's a double-edged sword because, like, if you really want your book out there, you have to really put yourself out there and be on social media and make these posts and, you know, you have to be creative with it and, it's like almost another job. It's like another job. Um, but at the same time, you get promoted and you get like people could see your book, but at the same time, like you said, you're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself out there. You become vulnerable because you put yourself out there, and people can criticize you, and that kind of deal because you're putting yourself out there. And so it's a double edged sword. But I think that it's important to put yourself out there if you want to promote that book. If you want to spread it, you're gonna have to be out there. You're gonna have to be on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and promote it and do these things to get it out there because I feel it's a book that needs to be read. It's a book that needs to, be seen by as many people as possible. So you gotta push it. You gotta push it out.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that very much. Is that I just want to shout out to everyone, like whoever has like a dream to aspire to do something like creating a book or a podcast or whatever it feels their passion. Like if they're like in the educational field, but they're like, oh, okay, I think I have something that I want to do for like put myself out there. It's totally doable. I'm in the beginning stages myself of doing those things, and it is a lot of learning and like these skills. I don't feel like okay, just for the book. Like it was just random. Where even at work, at my school site, they were trying to develop their website for the school, and because I developed my own website for the book, and then like been trying to working on this Instagram thing, they're like, "Oh, does anyone have experience with this?" And I raised my hand. I was like, "Oh yeah, I have
Yeah,
some website development." And they're like, they just looked at me randomly. They're like, "A social
you.
worker?" They're like,
Yeah,
"What? Like,
you.
what do you do? You're not a Google, you know what I'm saying?"
Yeah.
So it's just like these skills that you could take. You never know where it's gonna go or what passion it could lead you to. And I definitely just encourage people if it's like a passion of yours and you feel like it will help out a lot of people, definitely doing this to please do it. And me going on this podcast with you is a
Mhm.
way of doing that. I want to appreciate you too, John, of like seeing that when I think in the wherever you go, there's always going to be a lot of toxicity. And in the educational field, it is easy to talk about the bad students
Mhm.
and to talk down about them. And then students or staff in the staff lounges get together and they talk about these negativities that go on of like the administration is this, the district is
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And it's like I never it doesn't really fit myself to do those things. So I've always stayed away from staff lounges as a social worker. I was like, if only you knew what those students go through. But
Yeah.
I can't because of confidentiality purposes, you know?
Yeah.
So I stay away from it. And then like this podcast, I feel like is and it's hard. It's common, it's easy to be toxic or to talk about the bad things, but it's not always easy to provide a solution
That's
or to
right.
be solution orientated or to have that
Right.
positivity because you're just going against the commonly the grain. It's easier to go with the crowd than it is to go your own path. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so I feel like that's where I was like, man, like I hope I aspire to be something else in the educational field one day. How do I keep my flame going? How do I keep it lit? How do I keep moving forward and
Mhm.
not getting burnt out at the same time of what's realistic? And I feel like this podcast definitely highlights that and shows that about great people in the community doing great things, especially for its students that have difficult behaviors. How do we all come together and address and help each other out? And that's just so cool. Then for you, like when we're talking about putting yourself out there, I can only imagine, sir, what it was like for you, like where you are as administrator, like how that could potentially put your career at risk. uh, of like things to talk about. Yeah, see, I hit on the
Uh,
head, huh?
yeah.
Or just like people's perceptions of you as well too, being like what you do and be authentic about it.
Yeah, yeah, my goal is to be as positive as possible, and you know, it's the negativity is what sells. Negativity sells. If I had a podcast and I'm over here bashing people and bashing parents and bashing students and triggering people, that sells. All that on social
Yeah.
media. If you make a comment that's controversial and it'll divide. Divide all the educators. They'll have to take a stand. That will get posts. I'm sorry. That will get shares. That will get comments. That'll get likes. All of that stuff. And when you just start talking about, hey, let's love on students. Let's make sure that we demonstrate love. Let's keep them safe. Let's make sure that's just like, next video.
Yeah.
Next video. And
100%.
yeah, so like, I'm over here and I'm like, I don't care what everybody else does. I don't care what anybody else does. Here's what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I believe in. This is what I stand for. This is what my podcast does. And if I get guests or I don't get guests, it is what it is. I'm still gonna
Yeah.
post my stuff. I'm still gonna do my thing because I feel like I have a mission, a goal, and I keep putting it out there. This is what it is. Students with difficult behavior follow people over rules. They have to buy
Mhm.
into you. They got to buy into you
Yeah.
first. And the way you do is you build a relationship. And the way you build a relationship is you keep them safe, you demonstrate love, and you build up their self-esteem. You do those three things, you're gonna be okay. This is the message I send all the time. Everything revolves around that message. And however it's received is how it's gonna get received, but I know what I'm doing. Um,
Yeah.
Recently I was like, I'm just gonna screw up all of my algorithm here on social media and just show my life. Let's just break my
Mhm.
algorithm. And let's just not talk about classroom management. Let's show a little bit about exercise and about health and about some silly things. And here's what this is. And so I've been tearing my algorithm up so they don't know what I stand for anymore. but that's me. That's what I stand
Yeah.
for. This is what I
Yeah.
do. I take care of I go for a jog, I lift weights. This is the food that I
Yeah.
eat. This is the trips that I go on. This is how take care of myself. This is self-care for me. I don't want to be pigeonholed into this is just the one thing that you do only. No, I do so many other things. I do so many other things. So I appreciate the kind words, and I'm gonna keep doing this as long as I can. Try to be a positive force as much and as long as I possibly can. You know, and you keep doing you. It sounds like you just started. It sounds like you're just getting out there, and
Mm.
you're putting out that book, and that's the first step. And you're gonna put out another book, and you're gonna have more opportunities, and you're gonna become more stronger, mightier, and it's gonna be good. You're gonna be a force.
Yeah.
So, you
100%.
know,
Thank you.
Eric, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate your time. Um, I gotta get the book now. I don't have the book.
Yeah.
I have to get the book because now I want to read it. Now I want to read it.
Yeah.
You got me
100%.
interested.
Thank
Um,
you.
how can people find you, and how can people get this book before we end the podcast?
Yeah, definitely. So to get the book, it'll be like on Amazon or Ingram Spark. It will be Aidan's Wellness Adventure, and it's because I'm, starting off also put in my name like Eric Garcia, then hopefully I'll pop it up. And the Spanish version is La Aventura de Bienestar de Aidan. Same thing, but it's Spanish. And if you put my name Eric Garcia with it, Ingress Spark, Amazon, social media, Instagram, working on that. It's From the Heart Stories LLC. That's where I have like for the material about the book and promoting about the book and like mental health and incorporation into that into the Latino community. That's where I will be at on Instagram. Um, and then maybe is it that I could provide you a link to, and maybe to provide in the
Yeah,
description to make it easier.
well, you know what? If it's on your Instagram, if it's on your
Okay.
Instagram, you have the link on Instagram. I could copy and paste and put it on the YouTube. That's what I'm gonna end up doing. So
Mhm.
perfect. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I had a great time.
Thank you.